Makers, let's talk HSTs. And what I mean by that is half square triangles. You looking to get the absolute perfect half square triangle in your next quilting block? Well, I've got two methods here for you that are foolproof and help me out every single time. So if you're new here, I'm Catherine from Stitchery, and I do sewing and DIY tutorials every week. So smash that subscribe button down below. Now, this week I wanted to chat with you on half square triangles because it can be a little tricky when you're trimming them. So I wanted to walk you through two methods. Now, the first method is just using your regular old quilting ruler, and you want to use a square quilting ruler. So the first thing you want to do when you grab your ruler is to figure out how big your finished block is going to be. So in my example, I am making 2.5-inch square blocks. So I am going to place the corner of my ruler pointed up away from me, and then along the line, I'm going to find the 2.5-inch mark on either end of the ruler. And then you can use some masking tape, or I personally like to use washi tape just because it's really pretty and it comes off your ruler very easily. So if you are changing up sizes or using this ruler for other things, you can easily take that off without having any sticky residue. Now, once you have that mark lined up, this is going to be your template mark that you're going to place the edge of this tape along your stitching line. So not the edge of your block. Now, in this instance, we have already sewn together our two blocks to form that triangle piece with the 1/4-inch seam going down the end. Now, everybody sews just a little bit differently, and you might sew a scant 1/4 inch as opposed to a true 1/4 inch. So in order to ensure that your block is perfectly sized, you're going to take the edge of that top of that washi tape along the guide you just placed, and that is going to go along your stitching line. Then you can use your rotary cutter to trim off either side, and I love to use my revolving cutting mat here that just rotates just like a lazy Susan, so I don't have to move anything out of place. Now you could just reposition yourself around your cutting table, or in the worst case scenario, move your actual block so that you can cut it. But if you have one of those rotating cutting mats, it makes this such a breeze. And once you are done with that, the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to press those seams towards the darker color, or you could press them open, but I'm old school in my quilting and really like to press my seams to one side or the other. Now in this instance, you're going to have a few little dog ears that you can just trim off with your rotary cutter when you are done. Now the second method that I have for creating these half square triangles is my personal favorite, and it does use a specialty ruler. Now I know, you trying to save money, but hear me out on this one. If you're going to make a lot of quilts, investing in this ruler is so beneficial because it does all the guesswork out of things, and they are not that expensive, and one of the rulers that I tend to reach for most when I'm doing a lot of blocks. So what are these rulers, you ask? Well, they are the Clearly Perfect Slotted Trimmer Ruler. And these rulers come in two sets. So in the set, you have two rulers. You have a whole inch ruler as well as a 1/2-inch increment ruler. That way you can, depending on what your finished block size is, you can determine which ruler you should use. So if your finished block is going to be 2 inches, you'll use the whole ruler. And if your finished block is going to be 2.5 inches, which in my example it is, you are going to use the 1/2 increment ruler. So grab your ruler, and you will notice that you need to find where that marking is for your finished block. So I'm going to find the 2.5-inch mark, and you are going to place that line along, you guessed it, the stitching line of your 1/4-inch seam on the blocks you've pieced together. Now, this is exactly the same as the prior method where we're placing that line right along that block. But the way that this works is you just need to trim along the one side, take your rotating cutting mat, turn it, and then trim along the other side. And the really neat thing about this is it also trims off your dog ears in the process because it has those little slots, which I find saves a little bit of time. Like really, honestly, after you've pressed it, how hard is it to just trim those off? But it saves you a step. And then once you're done with that, you take it over to your pressing mat and you press those seams towards the darker color fabric, or open if you prefer, and you have a perfectly measured half square triangle. Now I hope you enjoyed this quick tips and tricks video. And if you did, do comment down below, let me know what you thought. And if there are any other things that you struggle with and would love to hear some tips and tricks on, I would love to help you guys out. Until next time, makers, let's get our sewspiration on.